Also, if you haven't noticed, we have a massive stall in our supply chain. And now, after weeks and weeks and weeks of waiting, the senile curmudgeon residing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is finally realizing that the bottleneck in our supply chain is actually affecting our entire nation, and more importantly, our struggling economy. Thanks, Joe. A record-breaking number of cargo ships are now backed up on both coasts and ports everywhere. They say it's all due to worker shortages, and that may be a big reason. Biden now says to avoid bottleneck issues, the Port of LA and Long Beach is going to start operating 24/7. Biden says increasing the port hours, especially during off-peak time frames, will allow them to work at a 25% faster pace. What have we been doing for weeks, Joe? This, as the Port of Long Beach and LA are responsible for importing more than 40% of the shipping containers that enter the U.S. On top of that, the nation's largest importer of goods, UPS, Walmart, and FedEx, have agreed to increase their hours and have their workers start working around the clock to try to avoid this. I'm so glad he's finally getting on this. Those ships have been sitting there for weeks and weeks, if not a few months. The administration claims that Target, Samsung, and Home Depot will also work to increase their store hours 24/7 to get things back on the shelves. We'll see how that goes. Holidays right around the corner. Big question right now is,
what happened to Philadelphia cream cheese?
The holiday season for all Americans, not just
there's no more whipped cream cheese at the store. Where'd that go?
At risk as supply chain disaster only gets worse. Persisting supply chain issues could complicate Thanksgiving grocery shopping. White House scrambles to address looming Christmas crisis. U.S. supply chain too snarled for
across the country and around the world. We need to think big and bold. That's why I'm pushing for a once-in-a-generation investment in our
We need to be impeached. That's what needs to be happening.
With my infrastructure bill and my Build Back
for
Better.
killing the troops in Afghanistan.
Never letting a good crisis go to waste. Just like Hillary said, that's what you Democrats do. Don't believe me? Here's Biden's press secretary urging and saying they want to use the pandemic and everything that's going on to fundamentally change our economy. Those are her words, not mine. Fundamentally change. That's what they're trying to do, folks, in all aspects of this country. From education to the economy, they want it fundamentally changed towards a socialist, even in some cases, communist agenda. Why don't you say it?
To make fundamental change in our economy, and you feel coming out of the pandemic is exactly the time to do that. And if we don't do it now, if we don't address the cost of childcare, to go back to Josh's question earlier, if we don't address the climate crisis, if we don't ensure that universal pre-K is a reality now, we're not going to have the same opportunity to do it for some time.
Congressman Thomas Massey represents Kentucky's 4th District and sits on the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee.
But yet they have them out there at that gate among the crowd. And so this is their fault. And it's right for military men and women to be able to criticize leadership when leadership is not leading in a manner that deserves respect, when leadership is not leading their command that is going to do the right thing and protect the men and women who are under their.
And I'll say it this way. He did the first video in uniform in his office. Maybe he should have done it in civilian clothes at his home. And then he was told not to do it again. He did another video. So that was the direct order he disobeyed then for doing the second one. We don't need troops on the battlefield turning around going, well, I don't like that, and disobeying a direct order. We'd have anarchy, we wouldn't win wars, and we wouldn't win battles. So I get that, and that's me playing devil's advocate. However, these generals, these woke radical generals, and Biden need to pay the price for this. They need to answer for it. And so hopefully no more military guys and gals get in trouble. We need folks like you, Marjorie. That's who's supposed to be fighting for them, is our members of Congress taking it to the president, taking it to the halls of Congress, and saying, this is wrong, what happened? So please keep that fight up for us, okay? Because it should be how the mainstream media lies or omits or skews a narrative. And I know you already know it, but I just love pointing them out. So, the late justice had made a comment about the kneeling that had been going on during national anthems in the NFL. And Katie didn't think that that was worth reporting. Well, let's just tell you what she said. So Kirk has a brand new book that's coming out. Going There. That's what it's titled. It's going to be released later this month on the 26th. And there's a few key points here. You got to listen closely to what Kirk did during the interview with the justice. She actually omitted parts of the interview. Now, the interview took place back in 2016. This was, of course, at the height of all the kneeling in the NFL, right? Colin Kaepernick and the rest of them. So Couric says in her book, she omitted the part where Ginsburg discussed her position, which she was against.
Liberalism 101.
In the NFL. So why would a seasoned journalist with years of experience on Today's Show want to omit something like that? Well, Couric in the book says she did so because she feared that Ginsburg did not understand the question because she was elderly. And Couric also says she did it because she was trying to protect the late justice from any backlash she might receive. Who would she get backlash from, Katie? The woke mob, the black community? Not all of the black community, just folks that believed in the kneeling. I wonder who she was protecting her from. Why in the heck would she want to do that? In the book, Couric writes that Ginsburg said, not standing for the anthem shows a contempt for a government that has made it possible for their parents and grandparents to live a decent life, which they probably could not have lived in the places they came from as they became older. They realized that this
Of course the libs would leave this out.
And that's why education is important. I think it's a terrible thing to do, but I wouldn't lock a person up for doing it. I would point out how ridiculous it seems to me to do such an act. Wow. Leave that statement up. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I just want that up there because I know a lot of folks, of course, like me, that are conservatives, wouldn't think that a very liberal justice like a Ruth Bader Ginsburg would say something like that. But that's what she said. But you didn't see it because Katie omitted it from the interview. Wow. The folks over at the Federalist have been calling Couric out for her blatant bias and total disregard for any type of journalistic integrity. What is that anymore, anyway? Tristan Justice is a staff writer with the Federalist. Let's bring him on. As I always do when we welcome him, the guy with the best name in news, Tristan Justice, which is all we're looking for in reporting these days. A little justice, a little truth, a little honesty. And Tristan, once again, I don't know why she would do this. I guess she was feeling guilty about it. She admits omitting this in her new book. Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre that she was the one to reveal this, but I wonder if she's revealing it because it's going to come out in some way anyhow. But look, it's pretty on brand for journalists like Katie Couric. I mean, let's remember it was 5 years ago in 2016 when she deceptively edited a group of Virginia gun owners with the manipulated, with the silence put into a question that she had asked to frame these Virginia gun owners as looking ignorant. But no such silence actually existed to that question. A recording of the audio actually came out later to show the gun owners actually had an immediate answer to her question and had a pretty fulfilled dialogue. And so you know, Katie Couric has a history of engaging in this type of
what you see here in Loudoun County, Virginia, where a public meeting over lessons on race and a proposed
was there. Watch this. What's your reaction?
I'm sorry, this is a black woman.
Mostly within the confines of Twitter and Fox News, is now taking over school board meetings. In some cases, turning into a literal fight, like what you see here in Loudoun County, Virginia, where a public meeting over lessons on race and a proposed policy on equity for transgender students devolved into mayhem. With audience members displaying aggressive behavior.
The only thing she got right was the agenda about transgender policies. He was there to speak out about them and tell them his daughter was raped. So that's all she got. But pretty much trying to paint this poor father who was so upset about what happened to his daughter as a radical, crazy right-winger who was there against equity and CRT training. So Joy Reid, you're a big fat liar. Your thoughts here?
That's absolutely untrue what you said.
Thank you.
This was there for the first time. He was there to inquire about what was going on with his daughter. He was also there to speak out against this policy because of what had happened to his daughter. And frankly, if he had spoken, it's likely that that policy would not have passed because the details of what has happened to his daughter and his family since then is completely outrageous. And so that's completely made up. He wasn't there for